oh, I love playing this so much, I would just like to make that. So my first release is Aeon Must Die. It was a mixture of a fighting game and a beat 'em up. When we talk about arcade, the closest connection might that come in is like what's happening in Tekken for Pakistan, right? Tekken 7, Tekken 8, and so on. I have always wanted to start my studio. I think that was the plan. If you don't know what you want to do, you're not going to be able to put efforts into it. My mom said that, why are you playing games all the time? What are you going to do, earn money with it? And I just remind my mom every time we meet now, like, yeah, hey, I make games now.
Hey, Charcadev. Today we're joined by a special guest and a friend of mine, Suhaib Rehman Khan. Suhaib is a seasoned game developer, a programmer who has worked in senior and lead positions at both indie and AAA studios. Before diving into other matters, I cannot emphasize enough on how remarkable that is for someone hailing from Pakistan whose local industry is still developing. Fast forward to today, and Suhaib is currently based in Tallinn, Estonia, and he runs his own game dev company by the name of Karak Games. Suhaib's game dev journey has been anything but straightforward, but it's one that many game devs would relate to and many would aspire to follow. It's a joy to have someone like Suhaib be a part of Charcadev, and we're very grateful to him for generously offering his time. I'm really excited to bring this to you, so without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Suhaib. Thank you so much for joining us today on Charcadev and for agreeing to share your valuable experience. Please introduce yourself to our kind viewers and explain how you'd get the opportunity to work in game dev and eventually start your own studio.
Hi, I'm Suhaib. I'm a self-taught game developer from Pakistan, currently living in Tallinn, Estonia. I have had the opportunity to work in indie game, had interacted with a few AAA games, and now I have my own studio. It is called Karak Games. So if you're wondering where the name comes from, for those from Pakistan, they can already guess that it is related to tea. You know, we all like some doodh patti or some karak chai, and that's like where the name is from. And what I'm trying to do there is fulfilling my dream, basically. I've always wanted to make games. I've always wanted to experiment with games, and basically this is my attempt to bring people I have enjoyed working with or talking with, and I've thought that, hey, we can all get together and do something great. Additionally, of course, the studio does provide some outsourced services, which is like utilizing my experience and a bunch of other people's experience to bring someone else's dreams to life, because I think games isn't really like, this whole field isn't just about me in a way. It's about a lot of people, and because the way we were growing up, it's like so many people wanted to be in games and not everyone got to be there for various reasons and so on. So it's like for those who have the opportunity to do so, we want to actually help them get to the end as well. As for how I got into game development, there's this funny story, right? And this is the story I like to tell people. Is like, I've been playing games since I was 3 years old, back when before Pentium 1 was a thing and so on. Never had a console for most of my life, and my brain just thought that games exist. It's like God-given, right? It's like it's almost like when how you get fruit, right? It's like grown in the fields, given to you, and so on. I never thought that games could be made by humans. Now you might think that, oh, how dumb could you be? It's like, yeah, I was that dumb. I've spent my life in arcades, gaming zones and everything, but I never questioned that games could be made by humans until I think it was like 2011. I touched C in Turbo C. If you've ever seen like this blue screen programming language without cursor and everything, that's like that first time introduction to programming is when I realized, oh wait, we can make games. And I was like, yeah, hey, this is my life. There is of course another joke accompanying with it, which is like, my mom said that, why are you playing games all the time? What are you gonna do? Earn money with it? And I just remind my mom every time we meet now. Like, yeah, hey, I make games now. Well, I play Street Fighter, so there's definitely a like. I wore this shirt specifically for you. But yeah, like, just to let you know, this is right here. If you want to have conversations, like, I have a lot of hobbies going on, you know. Actually, I've shown this before, I think. But yeah, I build gunplas sometimes.
You've often mentioned that you've been deeply influenced by arcades. What was the arcade scene like in Pakistan, and what arcade classics have been your favorites?
So I'm not sure if like how the current generation feels about arcade, because when we talk about arcades, the closest connection might that come in is like what's happening in Tekken for Pakistan, right? Tekken 7, Tekken 8, and so on. However, arcades for me were like, you know, we would save our lunch money because, you know, it's like go home hungry, who cares? Because then I need to actually go to the arcade, buy a few coins, and play the games. Back then, even like Tekken 3 and King of Fighters 97, 98 were like the most played games there, because it brought in this competitiveness through people, and they would go like, hey, you know what, with one coin how long can I be there? And they would just keep on playing, and there would be long lines of people trying stuff. It was me and my elder brother, we used to sneak out quite often. It was always in the partnership with that. I do think like the one like it was a game, and then it turned into like this whole franchise of games that we went through, right? It was Metal Slugs. The first time I played Metal Slugs was in the arcade, and that game stuck to me. Like, I was crazy. Every place I would go to, and if I see Metal Slug, I am playing Metal Slug. And I didn't know what it was, but then we discovered Neo Geo out of that, right? It's like, ooh, what's this like Neo Geo sign? And I thought they were like I said, they were only in arcades, and then we would find CDs with Neo Geo simulators. I didn't even know what a simulator was, except that I knew that there was Metal Gear in it, and I want to play it. The most funniest thing is that when me and my brother ran Metal Slug the disc first time, it goes like, you know, 1p or 2p to insert coin, and our brains couldn't comprehend what that actually means. And we were like, okay, this is broken, go exchange the disc. You know how it was. 30 rupees ki disc. You go exchange it because that's what it was. And one day I just figured it out that, like, you know, I was just sitting and I was like, it says 1p, and I was like, what if I press P and 1? It worked. It inserted the coin. We were able to play the game, and I was like, oh, we can play every game. It's not that it is broken. We were just pressing the wrong button. Also, it wasn't P1. It was just 1 as the key for the player 1. That's what 1p meant, first player. Which we learned way later on. But I think it wasn't about the game itself. It was more the culture that was with it that was inspiring, right? And when we sit together, when we play the games right now, even in the competitive scene, it is majorly missing, is because that social aspect of it doesn't exist as much anymore, because everything is ranked, everything is online. Even if you're doing casuals, you're playing online, and the stakes are way higher nowadays. So it kind of like, I miss those days, is because, like, you know, you could be there. The stakes were very personal to each other, and it was like how should I put it, like almost a sectoral rivalries, right? It's like, I live on this street and we have this arcade, so we go here, and the other guy live in the other colony, and it's like they have their own arcade, and they would visit each other and they would try to beat each other. That's what it was about. The other side, like getting high scores and stuff, that was like a completely different segment as well. So I think like the thing that stuck to me about gaming from arcade was literally just that. It's not just about the games. It's the culture that was with it, the friends, the rivals, and so on.
I simply love how gamers have to physically go to different places in order to play games. It adds an additional layer of dedication to maintain it as a hobby and build a sense of community. Speaking of which, most game devs have this moment while playing their favorite games during which they realize, wait, I want to build these games myself for the rest of my life. Did you have any such moment while playing those games?
The games that made me feel like, okay, this is the kind of the things that I want to make. I think it was like in 2009, I think I got my first PS2. That's when I finally played Devil May Cry 3, even though it was a way older game. And I think that was like one of the games that I wanted to make at that specific time, when I was like, okay, I'm learning C, I'm doing a bunch of other things. So it was like, I was a very action-oriented gamer, right? It wasn't really about what kind of experiences I want to make. I think it was way more selfish back then. In a sense that like, oh, I love playing this so much, I would just like to make that. And I think that has transformed quite significantly over the last 15 years. It's because the experiences have changed, the way I look at games have changed, my wants have changed, the way I connect with the media has changed so much. Now, the selfish part itself has not changed. I think I'm still when it comes to what kind of games I want to make, I'm still like, yeah, it's because I would want to play it. And these kind of and what I dream of making now are experiences. It doesn't matter how much action is involved with it. It doesn't matter how much combat is there or no combat is there, how many mechanics and systems are there. I get really excited when I talk about how people connect to games and how do you deliver those experiences. Outer Wilds was an experience that it's like, if I could make something like that someday, where I could take a chance on a project, I would do that. However, with a very big red note, remember it is going to consume your life to make it.
Indeed, game dev can be a highly consuming and addicting activity, which makes it a good time to talk about your game dev endeavors. You've worked within both indie and AAA teams, and also within your favorite game genre. I myself have worked within many indie teams, and I know that indies in particular can be incredibly intense. So what were those experiences like for you?
So my first release is Aeon Must Die, which was when the pitch came in. I saw the video first time on the internet, and I got to meet with the devs that were making them in Talon. It was a mixture of a fighting game and a beat 'em up, which is like immediately to me like, yeah, I want to work, please take me. so actually both of the first two games I released were fairly high, very action oriented, right? Even so I don't say the wrong name, Myth Force was an first person dungeon crawler game where you have magic and swords and arrows and a bunch of other things. It was like Saturday morning cartoon inspired game, and so both of them were, but I think like when it comes to Aeon Must Die, that was immediately like, hey, look, I love fighting games, I love beat 'em ups, I love action, I want to know what happens, I want to develop and so on. So it's kind of like this lucky coincidence that just happens. Is like, hey, you want to do something, and then there is this thing that is just available to you. I think I was fairly lucky, and of course like the effort is also there. However, I would still say that being at the right place at the right time and that project existing there, it's like it's very rare. It doesn't happen that much. And the experience itself was pretty insane as well. The whole dev cycle with every person that I've worked with has been really great, in a sense that I got to see how different people work, and how people, and even people that don't know or they weren't part of game dev, they weren't doing game dev, started doing the game dev recently, and they were starting to learn. Also, fighting games are so unique in a way that like the tech that is used there is generally not used in many other places like one to one. So that was intense, but also because we were an indie studio. We were always wearing multiple hats. So me myself, by the end of it, I was doing gameplay mechanics and systems. I was writing tools. I was doing animations and AI. I was doing shader programming as well. I was doing audio stuff as well, and then localization and bunch of others. Like it's like you're just there, right? And I think when it comes from the skill development point of view, I think that's the best place to be in, because you get to challenge yourself. And we get to do that, and at the end of it we got to release the project. And I think like I cannot emphasize enough on this point how important it is to have a release project for you, because this project was so close to like getting messed up, and we were all like, okay, what if it doesn't finish up? So getting that through the finish line was really, really important. So we were like, okay, we are gonna do all, we are gonna sacrifice as much as we can for it, and we did. And now because of that, I can talk to people. They invite me to stuff, and it's like, and we get to collaborate on so many things, right? So the experience itself was intense, but I think it was also very rewarding to get that, like, to cross the finish line. And I'm so glad that it was like in a genre that I enjoyed. But I've also decided and learned actually that if you like to play a type of a game, probably do not make that game by yourself, because by the end of it you're going to hate that genre. So I don't want to make fighting games anymore if possible, because I want to play fighting games and I want to compete in tournaments sometimes, you know. It was brutal. I think that turned into a really, really intense situations, but knowing that the game is going to fail is, I think, like it was a very hurtful feeling. And it sucks. You have friends on both sides, and regardless of which side you choose, it's gonna be bad, right? Part of the reason why I left the studio was because I was not recovering in the place.
You've spoken about your experience as someone who started with coding. For the majority of your career as well, you've worked as a programmer within game dev teams. How can someone from a non-game dev background, but a programming one, get into game programming?
I don't think a programmer is a game developer or a game programmer, because programming as a field identifies practically this whole skill set that could, and part of those skill set can be applied into so many fields, right? So becoming a programmer would generally means that you know languages, and then you're gonna move from programming to being like a coder or a system designers and stuff like that, which brings in things like patterns, advanced programming, different tools, depending on which field you're kind of going into. So one of the key thing that exists from being a programmer to being a game programmer is to understand a design to a certain aspect. Game design very specifically is like what a game is. And the moment you start understanding that, like if you want to be that, I think that's when you start becoming a game programmer. Game programming, I mean, of course, like everyone knows, it's like what brings in life, what brings in the rules into the system and stuff that you make, right? It's the development aspect of it. That's where everything converge, regardless of in games, regardless of whatever field you are in, except maybe some aspects of business. Everything is going to converge into programming, coding, game programming. Like that's where everything is going to go down. So basically, when we talk about becoming a game programmer, you need to have understanding of the basics of game design, which means things like mechanics, systems, then visuals, sound, and then you get to have a lot of skills with like programming itself, which is the language you're doing, the engine that you're using, and the tools within them. But it doesn't end there, right? This is where you separate yourself from being a programmer to being a game programmer. You end up learning things like Blender, because you need to understand the pipeline of 3D if you're working with that, which means modeling, skinning, texturing, rigging, skinning, UV coordinates and stuff like that. Because if you're working with 3D games and you do not understand the pipeline, you're kind of at a disadvantage there already. If you're going from 2D side, you need to understand how the 2D art side works, how maps works, how shader programming probably is going to work. From audio side as well, similar things. From writing side, you need to understand some form of structures, some form of writing, and so on, because you need to convert, like as a game programmer, what you need to do is that you need to take this design, understand it, and break it down so it could be computer can take instruction and players can interact with it. And that's where some parts of experience also comes in. Now, the thing is that in the specific case, you don't have to be specialist and do or make any of these things, but the understanding is needed. And I think that's the first step when you're becoming a game programmer from being a programmer. That's like the major step that you take that separates you.
That's a very interesting insight. I'm glad you brought up understanding game design as a part of becoming a game programmer. As game programmers, we've worked very closely with several game designers. In your view, what makes a game designer stand out?
I think game design is just such an open field, because I've seen game designers coming from biology side or biochemistry and so on, or from the law side, or practically people who have not interacted with tech at all. And it's accessible because you don't need anything. You literally need a pencil and a paper to be a game designer. Now, this might be like kind of reducing the skill that is required to be a game designer, because there is a very clear idea between a person that is an idea person and a person that is a designer. Nobody likes an idea person. Just to clarify that, if you are someone that comes in and tells me, hey, you have an idea and we can 50-50 it, I will let you know we are not talking. Right? So let's clarify that. Nobody likes idea guys, because ideas are really not worth anything, especially in this specific age where now with with the AI tools and stuff coming in as well, right? You can sit down and go like, hey, I have an idea, so draw me an image on this idea. So they are worth even less now. So like that's the worth of idea. What is worth is if you become a person who can do design, which means that you can take an idea and put it in a manner where you can explain to people what it is that you want, how you would achieve it, what are the benefits of it, what is it that you're solving, and it being in a form where, yeah, you can make it, right? It doesn't mean you know everything, but it's in a feasible form. So that's what like a game designer is as well. We don't talk about ideas like, hey, what if we make this game that is Souls-like and also Devil May Cry? That everyone has talked about that already. What people are interested in is the deeper conversations, right? The mechanics, the systems, the narrative, the visuals, the sound. How would you go about it? How do these things connect? What would be the experience? What would be the market? What would be who are going to buy it? Who are you going to reach out to? What should be part of the prototype? How would you prove the concept and everything? So why am I saying this? The reason I'm saying this is because when we talk about becoming a designer, you're gaining a lot. One of the key aspects is that you have to gain a lot of knowledge. It doesn't matter if you're coming from outside and you have never touched the games or any tech or anything, or if you've been working in game development for decades and now you're becoming a designer. You have to learn design for that. Just because you've been in games as well doesn't mean that you can be a good designer, which means that I think for me there's like 2 or 3 aspects which I'm like, okay, this is what I need to become a designer. First is the knowledge. You need to consume films, books, comics, manga, manhwa, anime, movies, plays, even architecture, modern art, your contemporary art. You need to consume, because if you don't know what exists, you cannot create anything new or good or be inspired and so on. It does not mean that you need to know everything, but it's kind of like a hunger for knowledge because you want to know, because you want to create something. The second thing is practice. You need to put knowledge to use, and you need to be able to put it down on paper. If you are a Wikipedia who can just argue that why something is good or not, but not create anything out of that, unfortunately, you're not a designer. You're going back to being a Wikipedia, and you're practically an idea guy again, right? Because what happens is that, and this is the thing, like people that gives ideas, they give it because they feel like there is this missing gap. Whether they're wrong or right is a completely different question. It's just that they feel like doing that, right? It's the urge. It's the human urge to like, ooh, I know something is exciting. I want to make it. That's what you're trying to do. So knowledge brings you there. So what you need to do, the next thing is to be able to put it down, to be able to show. That's what artists do, right? They don't just look at art, they make art, and it's almost like natural to them. The final aspect for me is visualization. If you do not have ways to visualize and showcase it to people beyond yourself, from my point of view, you're not really a designer because you're not able to communicate. Now, counter to what I'm saying, and I know this, people have made games when they have been bad with visualization, thanks to others. But most of the processes that I've gone through, or I've known, the people that I've known, they have made those through countless amount of fights until they have reached to the end. And the end result of that is a burnout and the breakup of team, which I don't prescribe to. So I'm like, if you are going to be a designer, you need to be good at communicating as well, which is where the visualization comes in. So and we're not talking about good or bad designers here, but from my point of view, these are like the three things that you need to be a designer.
We've spoken about programming and design, which we've established are skills requiring development and honing. Many people consider education as a viable route for acquiring those skills. You've not only completed your bachelor's, but also done your master's in digital learning games from Estonia. What is the importance of education in the modern age, especially considering all the discussions surrounding online learning and resources that are readily available to everyone today?
We have this pretext that is going on, right? Is that like if you want to become something, that education is not the best place to go to right now, especially in computer sciences, because you have pretty much everything available online. I do think like it is true to some extent, because in Pakistan especially, the education is a little bit behind on the tech side, and I think we have quite a huge room to move forward. However, I think you have to realize that you want to live a life at the end of the day, and I think that's where I think education becomes really important. It is not just the place where you go and take subjects and pass them and that is it. It is actually a social location. You are meeting people, you're building connections, you are building professional connections, you are becoming part of almost like a society, you know. You are going to be having people that are going to support you, are going to be supporting people, and a bunch of other things. I found the optimal way to skip enough number of classes and everything so I can study game development, which means DirectX, C++, Unreal Engine, and so on. And part of it was also talking to teachers, talking to seniors, talking to other people, and like finding opportunities. My first job, which I was working in with Unreal Engine, though it was not in a game development studio, I got it because I was doing Unreal Engine, and my supervisor, through their connections, they were looking for someone who works with Unreal Engine, and he just recommended me, and it was like, oh, okay, I get it. Second thing is about the content that the university is teaching. Now, like I said, there is things that are lacking. However, they still have a curriculum for, like, in terms of programming, for computer sciences, which means that if you're interested in being a programmer, You're going to learn math, you're going to learn programming, you're going to learn data structures, you're going to learn data patterns and stuff like that. Now, yes, you can learn them if you don't go to university, but if you do not have a mentor to guide you into those things, you might not even touch those subjects for maybe a decade or two. And as a programmer, if you do not know those things, I'm sorry, but like you cannot get those programming positions that people are looking for, because programming and coding, it's not just about writing instructions, it's actually about problem solving. So that was like a really important aspect for me, right? And I talk to people nowadays. Yes, they're really, there are people, new game devs who have not gone through programming education and stuff like that. Yes, they are good with coding. However, very few of them are actually problem solvers, and more of them are focused on tutorials. They are like, if there is no tutorial available, they do not know what to do. It's that simple. You don't know how to read documentation, you do not know how to make documentations, you do not know how to collaborate with people, and all of those things are important aspects into the professional life. Finally, and this is the most important part for me, is finishing up what you have started. If you have started an education and you give up on it because you didn't feel like it, that sets up a bad precedence for your professional life, which means that if you were on a project that you didn't feel like working on, you're going to leave. And that makes you not valuable for market. Bachelor's is like a project. It's a 4-year project. You're doing a lot of learning. You have goals and targets, and by the end of it, you're finishing up. And funny enough, games can take 4 years. Games can take 10 years. You can look at Cyberpunk 2077. You can look at Outer Wilds, which I've talked about, right? And these games have taken nearly decades, if not more. Cyberpunk, I believe, has taken more than a decade. So when we're talking about game development, we are also thinking about, like, what if you are in a scenario where you're stuck to this one thing for years upon years? Are you going to just give up and leave when it's the most crucial time? It was the education that I had, that I was like someone who had done programming, like academically, is what actually got me in. So I found the CTO, we talked, I've done Unreal Engine through that, I've done my bachelor's and everything, and I'm doing my master's. And I'm excited for this, and that's where, they were like, hey, okay, we can give you a chance. So there are opportunities that are available that you can only get through education. And there was like this, and I think if I hadn't done bachelor's, I would have been in a very worse position. And also, I wouldn't, like, think about it this way. I wouldn't be able to be in Talent today if I didn't had my bachelor's, because the way I got to Talent was through getting into master's program. I don't know how else to actually go out if I'm lacking on skills as well, and I do not have that education as well when I had the opportunity to take the education.
Certainly, completing your education should be prioritized, and it additionally allows you to consider pivoting to other fields if necessary. Speaking of education, you've been involved on the teaching side for game dev as well. Could you share some insights as to how teaching game dev feels like, and how rewarding is it?
How rewarding teaching is? I think it's a very personal question to each and everyone, right? For some people, and it's a funny thing, some people might think that teaching can give a lot of money. Unfortunately, that is not true in any case, which sucks. I do think teachers should be rewarded more because they play such an important role. When I started learning game development, I was learning a lot of programming. But despite doing everything I was doing, I never understood what I could use this knowledge. How can I use this knowledge, basically? So from 2011 to 2016, I was literally just doing programming, but I do not understand how to make games. The first time I kind of like everything started clicking was when we made these friends at Pixel Art Game Academy, and they were doing this workshop for board games. That was the first time I heard the word game design. and what a game design is. And the moment that explanation happened, it's like all the 5 years of knowledge just collapses, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what it is, you know. So it's like, it's kind of like when it comes to games itself, it's like, so yeah, Sadia Bashir, she was running PGA, so she was like that first step mentor who was like, you know, who introduced this one thing, and it's like, okay, this changes the whole thing now for me. That's the importance of mentors, because they help you understand things and they help you move beyond the hurdles that they have faced way faster. So I think like when I look at it from that point of view, it's personally very important for me, and I like to invest into people that show potential and that do hard work. So for me, teaching has been very rewarding. Of course, there are downsides to it, right? Because when we teach in university, for example, they're not the whole class is motivated or interested in games itself. Games is like this field where there's this idea that they're very easy to make, and if I go there, something fun will happen. But when they get to the classroom, they realize, ooh, there are so many boring and difficult parts to this. Why do I have to learn about money and business? What's marketing? Why? Business plan? I will never make that. Like, all of these things become part of it, right? But you have to learn it eventually. If you want to, especially if you want to lead someday, you want to make your studio. You have to learn these boring parts. You need to read those legal documents, fight with people, deal with lawyers, do taxes. Oh my God, like who wants to do that? But you have to. So, but every now and then, and very often actually, nowadays at least, it's like I find people that are so interested that they are going to invest into themselves. So one of the places that I teach, by the way, is a kind of an academy that provides courses to unemployed people in Talent. And because of me, there's now a course in the unemployment center, which is for Unreal Engine and game design, which is supported by Estonian government. But like, it's so funny that I got to teach 2 people, and I might be teaching 2 more people soon. And the last batch that I taught, they were really putting everything they could. I told them that making a tactics game is going to be difficult. They still made it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's not like the best thing ever, but what can you do in 7 weeks?
Coming back to game dev though, and you briefly touched upon this previously, a lot of people ask this question. How does working in indies differ from working in AAAs?
So indie studio is a little bit more personal in relationships. It's also like you're expected to have small teams, and each individual is like working on more than one skill set and so on. So even if you get in as like a programmer, at the end of the day, you might end up dealing with a lot of things. Like I used to work with somewhat with Blender as well, even though it was not my job, because I needed to fix stuff or fix up animations and so on, or talk to a lot of people. So in indie studios, the culture is a little bit more personal, more friendly. So also the risk happens if you pick a fight with someone, it is going to snowball quite badly. So whereas in AAA, it's like the individualism kind of disappears. You know, you are going to experience a lot more managers on top of you. You're going to experience that you're just a resource. Anything you say will take at least 2 business weeks to kind of go up and go down, if not more, right? And it's kind of like a place where if you have a thought on design and what should be fixed or not, you may or may not, but there's a very high chance they're not going to listen to you. That's like how the pipelines work, because it's more hierarchical. There are people that are making decisions on it and so on, and grievances are not that easily affected. And then of course, like because of the budget and stuff, the timeline differences and the pressure changes quite a lot. There are different pressures in each and every one of them. Generally in AAA, the pressure is a lot more on the management, mostly because the failures and successes are taken by them, and your job is to make sure that you're just reaching out to things and getting them down. So you have pressure on the tasks that you're doing for yourself. So if you're further behind, helping someone else out becomes less of an option. Whereas in indie, you're kind of like, you're kind of moving together. So it's like the whole piece needs to move together. So that's like in terms of working, that's like the biggest difference, other than if you're not talking about budget, team sizes, and everything. And like one of the biggest things is like, and indie is intense in a manner that like you're going to talk to your design as well, creative director as well. A lot of times you're going to hang out, you're going to have dinner and stuff like that. But in AAA, that's not going to exist. It's like you're competing with your own position, right? Because there is this looming threat that exists, like you can be replaced. We don't talk about it a lot, but that just exists, and that pressures you. So you're kind of improving your skills to move forward as well.
Having gone through all of these experiences, what prompted you to start Karak Games, your very own studio?
I have always wanted to start my studio. I think that was the plan. That was like what I envisioned in 2011 when I was like, ooh, I can be a game dev. The cartoon light bulb bing happens, and then 14 years later, it's like I left my the studio I was working at 23, and that was with the intention that like, hey, look, I think I need to just do it right now. So I started taking steps towards that. I think it took about 1 year to get that first project, which then became a push forward for me to like, hey, okay, I have some finances, so I can now establish the studio. I think another great thing that I found out was that there was like a grant that is available in Estonia, or was till like last year, and that was like some financial support. So mixed with what I was earning, or what I had earned, and mixed with that, I think it gave me like a baseline to go like, hey, I can actually push that forward. So that was one thing. The other thing, of course, is your core team. I don't intend to ever make games by myself alone. I do not envision myself as that. Like I said, I really love experiences, and that also includes like the experience of game development with people that I want to work, right? And for years on years, I've been talking to a lot of people and experimenting with a lot of things, and we finally found a few people that I was like, hey, okay, like now if I make a studio and I can resolve the financial issues, these are the people I would be wanting to work with. And the moment that got answered, it was like, hey, okay, I think this is good, we can begin. Finally, the thing is, I think the most important thing for me was to make the decision was habits, because a lot of people do not realize this, that just because you're making a game in an environment in a studio that is run by someone else does not make you eligible for running your own studio. So I had to recognize that I will have a lot of learning to do, which means my habits need to change. And those habits generally include that I will be learning something every day. And if I do not do that, I will fall behind, because there is such a huge gap in my knowledge. So for almost like a year after I left that, this is literally what I have been doing. The experience right now is very surreal, but also very scary, because every day is like, how am I going to survive in like 4 months time? And that is scary. Like I cannot put it in any other way, because it's like we don't have a lot of money. We have to either do something or make something and make sure that we are progressing every day, right? The really good thing about it is that everything that I'm building is for me and my team, which is like, when it succeeds, this is going to be amazing. So like, you are juggling between impending doom and almost like heavenly experiences.
As you lead your studio today, what are the most fundamental skills that you'll look for within game dev talent?
One of the things to realize is that different studios in different levels of like operations, they look for different things. Where I am, because we are a new founder, it's an indie studio with the lack of budgets and stuff like that, I look for people that I can invest into, and they can be part of the studio for a long time, because that's where the benefit comes from, right? It's not about today, it's not about short-term plans, it's about people that I can cooperate with and build a great culture out of that. Because at the end of the day, if I do not build that culture, it is going to fail, because we don't talk about culture quite often, and that is because I think a lot of people are focused on how to make the game, but what we discussed earlier as well is like games are made by good processes and so on, right? So culture is actually part of that process as well. So what I look for as a indie studio and a new founder is that the willingness to be there, and they want to be there. Like this studio right now with the place I'm in, it's not for people that are interested in making a lot of money, because I don't have a lot of money. So that does not make sense. If I wanted to find someone with high skills and so on, I could do that, especially in the clear market. But the goal of the studio is to find like the core team, people that can add into the thing, people that have a purpose to be there. Now these people are very rare for me to find, because it is very difficult for anyone to know what they want to do. Those people are very rare and far in between, right? So, and when I find one of them, that's why I communicate with so many people. And when I find one of them, I'm like, hey, can we actually figure something out so you can work with me for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, and we can see how things goes, and maybe something in future that's happening. And that's how my collaborations are working nowadays. And that's where like one of the most important things that comes in, right, is it's not really a skill. It's knowing what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, you're not going to be able to put efforts into it, and you're not going to take what I'm teaching you to expand on that, learn more, and so on, right? So one such example I'm going to give is like, whenever someone wants to learn Unreal Engine, and they want to learn from me, I do not teach to them directly the first day. Here's what I do, because there's so much resources available, is that, hey, there is this very specific tutorial on YouTube. If you search Unreal Engine 5 beginner tutorial, you're going to get it. It's a 5-hour video which talks about Unreal Engine, helps you build something and interact with a lot of tools within Unreal Engine. So when people that, and that's like one of the things that differentiates people who think they want to do game dev in Unreal Engine and people who actually want to do game in Unreal Engine. And I can tell you more than 80% of people that I've interacted with have not finished watching that video, and they have not talked to me afterwards. It is not because I didn't want to teach them further. It's just that when it comes to learning tools, programming and stuff like that, if you are unable to study for yourself, you are not going to be able to survive in game development. And I won't be able to use you at all, because tomorrow I'll give you a challenge, I'll trust in you, and you're going to fail me. I do not want that. So when I said like, so this is where we get from not skills to kind of skills, right? So in skills, self-sufficiency is a very important skill. You need to be able to learn. You need to be able to apply things. Of course, given that some direction is given and some help is provided to you, but if you're not able to complete the tasks or like work by yourself, pretty much nobody would want to work with you. Nobody want to stand, like a senior programmer, a senior 3D artist doesn't want to stand on your head to tell you how to press every button to make something work. That's just not it, right? So want, then self-learning, basically being self-sufficient, being understanding. And then finally, there is a little bit of the communication that just involves. Like communication is part of everything, and everyone is going to talk about how important communication is and also showcase how bad they are at communicating. So you need to be good at communicating. And what does that mean? Like, let's not talk about vagueness. What that means for someone joining is like, they are able to ask questions. They're able to argue. They're able to provide why what they have done is good or bad. They're able to provide you options, and they're able to listen. Actually, listen would be the first thing, but listening is very important. And I think like, even if someone has no knowledge, I think these 3 things really do define them.
Lastly, as a parting note, what advice would you offer to someone starting out and aspiring to be a game dev?
Becoming a game development, like, first, just know that you're not going to be restricted to a singular field anymore. If you want to be a game developer, you need to be interacting with a lot of fields. Like one of the things that I talk to people about is that, and this is like, there's this kind of a diagram that I make, right? Which is like, why is game development complicated? And there are 5 professional fields, like at the basic level, that interact with each other to make a game. Those 5 fields are programming, art, sound, design, and business. Now, of course, you can eliminate, like, think about just these boxes that just exist. Now, business can be eliminated if you're doing things for hobby, but you cannot eliminate any of the other 4, almost ever. And when you're getting into game development, the sooner you realize that, and the sooner you start consuming all aspects of it, the better you will get. Now, this does not mean that you will be doing everything professionally and perfectly. It means that you are exploring them enough so you can decide which side you actually want to go into, which side you want to specialize into, and then supporting it with the other aspects of it. A lot of developers, game developers, do fail because they pick one side and they ignore rest of it. And when I talked about the definition of who a game developer is, right, it was literally that you can pick any of the fields and you start learning game design with it, you become a game developer. So if you're doing programming but you do not understand game design, you're not going to be making good games. If you're doing art but you're not doing game design and you don't understand what a game art is, what a game arts pipeline is, and so on, and what the player's experience is, and you're not making good games. So that's it, right? It's like, regardless of wherever, and game development is accessible to practically everyone. The only thing that is really stopping you from being great at it is where do you put the barrier or limit on what you're learning, and that stops you. So if you're getting into it, don't come with that barrier. Come with the open mind of, hey, I'm going to touch everything that I can for 5 years or something like that. And that is my second point, that comes in time. Unfortunately, you cannot make a game in a year, especially when you're starting first time. You can finish up the tutorial, but you have to give yourself time. Don't be in a rush. There is this thing called chasing phenomena, which is detrimental to all game developers. Do not chase phenomena that have happened, and give yourself time and enjoy the journey. And you'll be okay. You're going to learn things. In recent times, we have seen this a lot more often because of how much accessibility indies have to make games. Phenomena, I call these games that are things like Repo, things like, what's it called? Schedule One, Among Us, and there's like a bunch of these games that have been seen to be like, hey, one person or 2 people have made it and they have earned a lot of money and so on. A lot of people come with the intention that they want to make these phenomena. And when the phenomena has happened, you cannot recreate that phenomena because it has happened. And that is one of the worst things that happen to a game developer when they see something and they're like, hey, this is what I want to focus on for the next 3 years. Because the people that have made these games, the people that have made these phenomena occur, they weren't necessarily chasing phenomena. They had the idea that they were doing something. They were either doing something simple or either something complex, and they were doing it very thoughtfully. They had wants and wishes, they had design, but they were also understanding the market and the business, and things clicked for them and it worked out. But when we try to recreate those phenomena, they are never recreated. We have a bunch of examples of similar game types. Like when Overwatch became a phenomena, we have had multiple hero shooters, but none of them succeeded. And we are not talking about small studio hero shooters. We had AAA level hero shooters. Similarly, when Marvel Rivals happened, hero shooters got a surge again, so people have been trying to recreate that again, but it is not happening as well. So in my experience, phenomena chasing is pretty much death to a studio or a game designer when they try to do that. So the time should not be spent in chasing the phenomenon, but rather it becomes a case study for what are the good things and the bad things, and you should be making your own game. And if you do not do so, there's a very high chance you're not going to make anything or anything sustainable in long run. Now, this does not mean that like if you make the same thing, you're not going to get the same response or like a response which would make you profits and stuff like that. It's just that you will not receive the same element. One such example is like when we talk about Among Us. Among Us was kind of like it was a dead game, and it was found during the time of COVID, and that is what turned it into a phenomena. So you do not know what is going to turn your game into phenomena. That's something about like a being at the right time at the right place kind of a thing. And the best thing you can do for that is make games. And if you keep on making games, you're gonna get there.
And that concludes our session for today. Special thanks once more to Suhaib for all the time that he's given to Charcadev today, and to you guys, the viewers, for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed, please make sure to check out our other session with the experienced game designer Barak Aitaj. And if fate has it, we shall meet again. Goodbye.